Okay, now we're recording. Now you say something so the people know that your voice is recording too.
My name is Sarah Leapart,
Super
and
creative.
I'm
I'm so glad.
cool.
I'm cool. All right, we have no technical issues to fix because this is a finely tuned machine at this point.
10, baby, episode 10. Yow!
Right, 10, it turns out 10 tries is how long it takes us to get something right.
Well, we'll see once we get it all loaded and shit, and 18 people contact us because you can't fucking hear me.
My fault. My fault. The good news is that because that was a failure, I got to learn more about how podcasting works.
Because if you're not failing, you're not living.
You're not if you're not trying cheating. No, this is not inappropriate. No. If you're not cheating, you're not
No.
trying, but that's not the same thing.
No, Mark Manson says if you're not failing, you're not living.
Well, we lived a lot last week, didn't we?
Yeah,
Um,
I've lived a lot in the last couple weeks, like a lot.
big living. Awesome. Okay,
Living
so
large, living large.
shh, shh, be quiet. Hello, and welcome to the Mental Funny Bone, Becoming the Gastro Girls. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sarah. A big part of this podcast is talking about mental health. However, we are not mental health professionals. As you have noticed in previous episodes, we can barely help ourselves. This week we aren't starting by crying, so I feel like we're doing a little bit better. Anyway, should you need mental health professional help, you should seek that elsewhere. Check out our show notes for some links. Bum bum. I feel like at the end of the intro there needs to be a
Like we need a catchy
like a
phrase.
line, like a line. Bum bum.
Like
I'm
like
a
on
little wound
Law
up today.
like on Law and Order.
Yeah, exactly, exactly like Law and Order. I'm gonna write them a letter and see if we could borrow that. Bum bum.
I don't
We've already addressed your baby monkey hair that is only on one side of your head.
I don't know. All right. I think an important thing for us to talk about before we get into fan mail shout outs and the rest of this is we have a YouTube channel. So if
Wee.
because I said I would do that by the end of May, and by by golly, I got that up on the last day of May. So who's a technical genius now?
I, I I mean,
Just
it was
just
pretty
say
easy,
it.
right? It
Yeah,
was
I mean it
pretty
was
easy,
super
right?
simple. It was like, do you want
So,
to
like
load
when
a
I said 3 weeks ago, just fucking click the button and create the channel, you probably could have done it then.
Yeah, I mean I could have, but I didn't. So I did it when I wanted to do it without anybody else's help because
I have decided that I would like to make sound effects throughout today's episode. Bum bum.
it's perfect. Those are going to sound great. Any hope of us sounding professional. Also, this week, if you could make little rustling noises around your desk the whole time we're recording, that would be
That
amazing
was
as
your
well.
cat. That was your cat.
Wasn't
That wasn't me.
definitely
That was
not
not me. That was your
totally you.
cat.
Totally no
It was
rustling sounds.
probably because I was looking at reading material. This will sound very rustly here because I'm see how I highlighted things? I got the highlighter out.
Okay, fan mail, you go.
All right, we have a shit ton of stuff to talk about, so we're not going to take too long on the fan mail today. Kim D also gets or always gets a shout out because she is Captain Funny Boner. Just want to call out, we love her and we love her love for forensic files. We both put Lori Black on here. It's there twice because apparently I didn't read what you already had written there. Anyway, the neighbor from across the street when we grew up on Similo Drive, she has been listening to us and we love her because she put a little note on Facebook, shared the podcast, so that's really awesome. Any of you out there who are on the Facebook, if you would share, if you've made it to episode 10 with us, I hope that you will realize that we're getting better and we're doing good things and share it like Lori did. But more importantly, Lori took the time to send us an email. And in said email, she shared some photos from back in the day on Similo Drive. And they're pretty amazing. And I think we should have figured out how to share those while we're talking right now. So people who watch the YouTube will get to see those. But by the looks of my sister's face, she didn't figure that out in time.
I'm on it.
So, anyway, we'll eventually show you those pictures. But thank you, Lori, for taking the time not only to share the podcast on the Facebook, but also to hit up the email. We very much appreciate that. And in case you haven't heard it a million times in the past, it's gastrogirls@gmail.com. Throw us a line, give us some love. We would very much appreciate it. That's it for fan mail. What's next?
Oh, I don't know because I'm off that page now.
Next is a weekly catch-up corner. We
Ugh,
went to Kenny Chesney this weekend.
that we did. That we did. That was a full day.
And amazingly, he showed up and I remember all of it.
I mean, I am currently looking at ways I could go to that concert again in a different city.
I I mean, I knew one song that Kenny Chesney played, literally, but I still just had the whole day was a really good time. And that other guy who played before him, Zach Brown, I really enjoyed him. And he did like some cover stuff. He did Call Me Al.
I
He
know
did some Paul Simon,
he did
which
Paul
is
Simon.
freaking fantastic, and Beastie Boys.
Right, and Van Morrison. Like you don't often see a band cover Van Morrison and then slide right into Sabotage.
Right. It was freaking fantastic. So I enjoyed Kenny Chesney because he's just a great performer. But I would have liked to just listen to Zach Brown just continue to do covers of songs that I know.
Yep, yep. I
But
lost
all in
my
all, an amazing time.
I lost my Gen X mind all over Zach Brown. Amazing. Yeah. It was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. Worked out great.
Fantastic.
Worked
It was great. My sister played Flip Cup for the first time ever, which Noah
right.
does not believe. Noah does not believe that you've never played Flip Cup.
We didn't have it in college. We played different games. We played quarters. We didn't play flip cup and we didn't play that one where you have the ping pong balls and you try to throw
Yeah,
them in the cups. We didn't play that
it's a
one either.
very creative name for that one, beer pong.
Oh, right. You have the and did now the kids these days they play it with water.
Yeah, because they are much more, what's the word I'm
Averse.
looking for? They don't like the
Aware.
germs as much as we used to. Because we would take that ping pong ball off
Ugh,
of the fraternity floor and
ugh,
just throw it into a cup of beer and then take that dirty ass ping pong ball out
out with your
and
fingers.
chug that beer. And then, well, at one point we started, having the rinser. It was a cup of water that you rinsed it in. Like that was helpful. Ugh. No, it's very germy, very, very, very germy. So yeah, but the thing is, the kids now these days they don't get nearly as drunk because they're not playing it right because they just have their beer sitting there and like me. I took a little
Sip,
drink.
sip of the water. Right.
Yeah,
No, it's not how it worked.
no, and they're not building up their immune systems properly
Right. I feel like that's why we made it through COVID. I'm like, I
because of
don't,
all the nasty drinking games we played.
right. I'm like, oh, well, just pass this to the left. Have a sip of it. Do you want part of my beer? Hey, how did you get punch out of the garbage can if you weren't using your own hand? Like,
It's funny because now that we're talking about this, remember when I got mono when I was at Slippery Rock and I
no,
couldn't figure out where I got mono?
right.
Huh.
So weird.
Moving along.
Right. That's all I got. Kenny Chesney was fun.
It was. It
It
was.
the parking lot is always equally as fun as the concert. Like, why is that girl
Very
wearing a
much so.
onesie that is so tight? Like, so it can't be comfortable. It's got to be hurting your butt and your
I'm
front.
still. I'm still very confused. I'm still confused about the extremely tight denim esque material
Onesie,
onesie. My confusion though is it was surface of the sun
197
hot.
degrees. Yeah.
And there these girls, I'm going to say there was two that I saw that I could not figure out how there wasn't sweat marks all over.
Mm,
tight denim, I don't know how you don't have sweat marks all in your crotch. I just
Right.
don't. Or like boobs, around your boobs.
It was steamy. Um, there were many things to talk about that happened in the parking lot. Like I witnessed someone create jean shorts out of jeans using a steak knife.
Our friend Rosa. Hey, if
I,
anybody's going to pull it off, it's that girl.
Also, another fascinating thing that I found out as we were pulling into the Kenny Chesney concert is that there are two Portlands. And
This is
I,
something that's very amazing to me and apparently everyone else in the car except for you and Bella.
what I didn't know is how revelational that would be. I was like, Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, and
And
everyone
we all
stopped.
went,
Like the record slid off, or the needle slid off the record. There's two, two Portlands.
then after I said it out loud, like this is the day after I was telling Noah about it, and I was like, oh, I feel like I did know that.
Mhm.
But maybe it's just because I learned it the day before.
You knew it when you told the story. Also, in other geography news, we were
Yes.
planning our vacation and talking about Charlottesville, and you said very quietly, very off to the side, like we weren't having a conversation with just the two of us. You said, "Is that in Virginia?" Like he whispered it to me softly and delicately.
Like, and I mean, nobody else is home. It's not like
Just, hey,
that
I
is
know
Virginia, right? Isn't there
geography.
another Charlottesville?
No, no, it is
There's
not
not two of
Portland.
those.
No, there's a
What's in?
Charlotte.
Oh, is that in South Carolina?
No,
No, that's in North Carolina. What's in South Carolina?
about
What
that.
is a big city in South Carolina?
I don't know. We're
Okay,
done.
moving
Moving
on.
on.
Okay.
Moving on. Do we have a growing up gaster story of the week?
We have a gaster story. I'm not sure it's really has to do with growing up gaster as neither of
Oh,
us were gasters for this. Oh, well the first we put two stories down. The handicap, which was growing up gaster because that's when we were both living at home. And then the airport story.
why don't you tell the airport story first?
So we were going on a Disney cruise, me and Noah and Owen and Sissy and Liv. And we were coming through security. How long ago was this? 2019?
Yes.
So Owen was 9,
Mm-hmm. Sounds about
maybe
right.
something like that. So we're in the TSA line, and Owen decides he's going to have a bellyache. And I say that like he decided, like he was really like,
Right.
okay, I think now is a great time to have a bellyache. We were already like a good ways into the line, so there was no way we could get out of the line really. We were just about to the agent that we were going to show our passports to. And so I asked the TSA lady, I was like, he's not feeling really well. We really need to get through here quick. Can you do anything? And she was super helpful and said, no, but you can ask people in front of you if they'll let you go. And I was like, all right, well, I've been there before. Like almost, I got to poop. I'm going to poop my pants. So like, all right, I got to help my kid out. So people in front of us, hey, my kid's going to he's not feeling really well. Do you think we could get in front of you and just, you know, so yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I get to
People are
one woman
nice.
who, yeah, everybody was great. And the one woman, she stopped me, got in front of me, was like, if I was you, I wouldn't be saying that very loud because if he's sick, they won't let him through.
Thank you. What? No.
Yeah. And I just went, oh, okay. By sick, I meant that he's going to shit his pants. So if you can let us through, that would be super fantastic.
He doesn't have the Zika virus. He has
Yeah.
to poop.
Right. And this is
Appreciate
before
you.
COVID, by the way. So anyway, I said that really loud and everybody pretty much just threw their hands up and let us go. The funny part is we get to the bathroom that's right beyond security, and I'm standing outside of the bathroom and all the people that let us through are walking past us giving me a thumbs up like he made it good, all right, awesome. So
So cute.
so he has a bellyache. So we get into the airport and we need to buy some bellyache medicine, like Imodium AD. Not that he was going to actually swallow an Imodium AD pill, which is a whole other story. However, we go in and let's see, if Owen was 9, Liv was 14.
14.
Okay. So this is a crucial age, an age of embarrassment, right?
Right.
So we're
She
in the little shop. Go
she
ahead.
already did not want to be there. Like
Yeah.
we are taking her on a cruise to the Bahamas or wherever we went. I'm not sure where the islands were that we
I don't
visited
even
because
remember.
I like to pretend I'm good at geography, but really I'm just slightly better than you.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, so she doesn't want to go. There's no one for her to hang out with. She's 14 and, suffering with undiagnosed major depressive disorder. So
Yeah. She's not happy. She's
ball, ball of
not happy.
laughs, that one.
Yeah. So we go into the little newsstand store, and I get the Imodium AD for Owen, some other shit. Lives across the store looking at something sad. I'm not sure. So I check out, and there's several other people in the store, and I yell across the store, "Hey, Liv!" She turns around, and I say, "Got your diarrhea medicine. We're ready to go."
It was like the look on her face, like it was caught between I appreciate what you've just done and I'm
Like, I
going to
respect how
dive.
funny that is, and I want to kill you.
Right. I'm going to die of embarrassment. But every time we walk past that particular newsstand in the airport, she's like, "Hey, I have your diarrhea medicine."
Yeah.
And that is how you get a good growing up gastro story of the week, is that these are just ones we repeat to each other.
Yeah. These are ones that come up constantly. These are the stories that we tell.
Exactly. All right. Do you want to tell the people how I made fun of you when you were younger? So
Okay.
when Sarah was in high school and I was just, middle of college, we would do stuff together when I was home, but it wasn't the same kind of level of friendship we have today. We would go shopping together and, funny stuff would happen. This particular time, I think we were in Century 3 Mall.
No, we were at the new area that they had just built up right by the Farmore, where the Old Navy was.
Oh
There
my
was an Old Navy
gosh.
and a Subway. There was a Subway there. That was new.
Was there also an Italian oven?
I think that there was an Italian oven over there. Oh, I would punch an old lady in the face to have another Italian oven around here.
Seriously, 100%. Yeah, that was good stuff. I really enjoyed an Italian oven. They wrote your name upside down for those of you who never
It
got to
was
experience the
freaking
joy.
amazing.
I was like,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
these guys aren't just waiters and waitresses, they're geniuses.
No, they are. I could never work there.
For those of you local to Pittsburgh, we are talking about the Century Square area up behind Century 3 Mall. If you were familiar with that place in the early 90s, there was a Farmore that had all kinds of things.
You know
Yes,
what else
Sarah?
was there?
What?
Across the street, there was a busy beaver.
We were in the Old Navy, and the same thing happened that would always happen when we were out in public. In is that
When I
Sarah
left
would
the house.
interrupt whatever we were doing because she had to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. And sometimes she would look at me with this like panic-stricken look on her face, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening again for the ninth time this week when I've left the house." So shocking. So and I don't know, particularly this time I was just annoyed. Like I was like, "Great, we just got here." And I think what you said is we have to go. Not I have to go to the
Always.
bathroom. We have to go. And I was like, "Well, we didn't even get to fine. Fine." And I was like, I think I went off a little bit about how your particular brand of bathroom issues kept me from doing things that I wanted to do all the time. I think I had a big
Yeah.
tirade about it, and then I took a breath and calmed down and said, I'm sorry that I made fun of your handicap."
Sorry that I made fun of your handicap. Because, I mean, I had planned that shit literally most of the time. Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm going to fuck over everybody I'm with and have to take a poop every time I leave the house. Because that will be fun.
Right. Right. Because you
Fun
intentionally
for
didn't
all.
didn't want to shop. You wanted to pretend like you wanted to shop, but you didn't want to shop. Right. So there is a
Oh,
very, very bathroom related two for the price of one growing up gaster stories of the week.
that's what you get.
All right. Let's dig into the meat, the reason
Oh,
for the
yeah.
season.
We really have to today because this is a big one. This is a real, real big one.
Also, and unlike last week, I feel like after we talk about this, I'm going to feel uplifted instead of very sad.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, this is definitely, definitely a better, yeah,
right. Right. I
yes,
think both of us are
yes,
in a slightly
yes.
better place this week. So
100%, 100%.
let's do it.
Go ahead.
Why don't you start off?
Well, the first thing I actually want to talk about is the Daily Stoic.
Oh, but
So I signed up for Mark Manson's newsletter of sorts, and then when you do that, he suggests like some other people that you sign up for their newsletter. So I signed up for all these freaking newsletters, and one of them is the Daily Stoic newsletter. So this newsletter is written by a gentleman named Ryan Holiday. You could check out some of the stuff he has written at store.dailystoic.com. Christine, you can make a note of that and get that into our notes. So, one of his emails last week, it was titled, "Do you really have time for this?" And let me do something real quick. Okay. So I'm actually just going to read the majority of the email straight from here. So here's what Ryan Holiday had to say. It's amazing how much time some people think they have. They're so sure they're going to live into their 80s, so sure that next week, that tomorrow is coming, that they're willing to spend today arguing with strangers on the internet. They'll hand over an hour and their brain to talking heads from the television outrage factory. They'll seek out conflict and arguments, going back and forth over text and email, passing up time with family for a fight with a coworker. We've talked about Elon Musk. I mean, I haven't. Ryan Holiday has, as you'll see here, before the embodiment of this modern ethos. The guy has more money than God, more actual problems than any human can handle, and he's volunteering to fight in the culture wars. Let's contrast this with the bit from comedian Tom Segura, who I love. We've talked about over at Daily Dad. Daily Dad is another little thing that Ryan Holiday writes. So anyway, when he had kids, he said he gave up arguing with strangers. He gave up arguing with his own parents too. He'll just tell people whatever they need to hear to end the conversation so he can go back to what he actually needs to focus on: his family, his career, and his own issues. I actually went over to the Daily Dad that he was talking about there. And it says there, we talked about Tom Segura's great Netflix specials recently, and he makes a great point about how becoming a parent should change you. One thing that changed for him, he said, is that he no longer had time for arguments with people. If he expresses an opinion at a party, he jokes, and someone says, I disagree, he immediately changes and agrees with them. He had no time, no energy, no motivation for pointless conflict, even with stupid things his own parents say.
that that feels very familiar based on our conversation last week, doesn't it? I choose peace.
Yeah, and that's what we were getting to is that was the big thing that stuck out to me, just the fact that we are both people who value peace, and there's a big part of both of us that just wants everything just okay. So,
Um,
anyway, I just thought that was worth sharing because, especially now that I'm back on the Facebook and I'm back in that, mix of everybody throwing out stupid shit and then everybody having to comment on the stupid shit.
again, it feels really familiar. Like, I don't want to fight about this. I don't want to get into that. Like, 80% of what I said last week was about how I'm not sure if that is the best value, but it does give me the opportunity to not care
Hmm.
about a few things.
Yeah. It's going into this chapter, it's your opportunity to choose what you're going to care about
Hmm.
and to
Yeah.
choose how you're going to care about it.
But there are some things that are worth fighting about. Like there are some things that are worth getting into. And I
Yeah.
think that's where I struggle a little bit talking about the value. And I think that's what the chapter is about, always choosing, right? So I'm always choosing peace versus is this thing worth is the thing that we're fighting about worth sacrificing that peace? And most of the time it's not. Like I'm not going to get into it. But sometimes it is. And I think
Mhm.
that looking at that kind of behavior and really sitting down and thinking about what are the things that are more important to me than that thing that I just identified as one of the most important things. And that's a nice way to identify your values, right? Because those are the things that I'm going to choose over peace. Fighting about some of the things that I think are important, it's worth not having the peace to be able to kind of hash through those things.
Yeah. And that's what the chapter is about.
All right, what
And
else you got?
I think it's kind of a big deal. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to make all the scratching, pounding noises that you were talking about because I'm opening up my book
Well, at least we know what they are now.
for the love. So there's a part, like a whole section I just wanted to read.
Do it. Go for it.
So I'm going to go ahead and read about the victimhood chic, which
Oh, I have something about that too. Carry on.
I don't like the word chic because that's not what that looks like.
It's like placebo.
Right. That looks like victimhood chick. It doesn't look like chic. Like chic, I think like the wrestler. What
Like the
was his?
Iron Sheik.
Yeah. Right? It should be Sheik or something like that isn't chic. But I was super proud of myself that I knew that that's what it was anyway. So, the responsibility fault fallacy allows people to pass off the responsibility for solving their problems to others. This ability to alleviate responsibility through blame gives people a temporary high and a feeling of moral righteousness.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, one side effect of the internet and social media is that it becomes easier than ever to push responsibility for even the tiniest of infractions onto some other group or person. In fact, this kind of public blame or shame game has become popular in certain crowds. It's even seen as cool. The public sharing of injustices garners far more attention and emotional outpouring than most other events on social media, rewarding people who are able to perpetually feel victimized with ever growing amounts of attention and sympathy. Victimhood chic is in style on both the right and the left today, among the rich and the poor. In fact, this may be the first time in human history that every single demographic group has felt unfairly victimized simultaneously. And they're all riding the highs of the moral indignation that comes along with it. Right now, anyone who is offended about anything, whether it's the fact that a book about racism was assigned in a university class, or that Christmas trees were banned at the local mall, or the fact that taxes were raised 0.5% on investment funds, feels as though they're being oppressed in some way and therefore deserve to be outraged and to have a certain amount of attention. The current media environment both encourages and perpetuates these reactions because, after all, it's good for business. The writer and media commentator Ryan Holiday, who's the Daily Stoic, refers to this as outrage porn. Rather than report on real stories and real issues, the media find it much easier and more profitable to find something mildly offensive, broadcast it to a wide range of audience, generate outrage, and then broadcast that outrage back across the population in a way that outrages yet another part of the population. This triggers a kind of echo of bullshit pinging back and forth between two imaginary sides, meanwhile distracting everyone from real societal problems. It's no wonder we're more politically polarized than ever before. The biggest problem with victimhood chic is that it sucks attention away from actual victims.
Hmm.
It's like the boy who cried wolf. The more the more people there are who proclaim to be victims over tiny infractions, the harder it becomes to see real victims. People getting addicted to feeling offended all the time because it gives them a high. Being self righteous and morally superior feels good. As political cartoonist Tim Kreider put in the New York Times, outrage is like a lot of other things that feel good, but over time devour us from the inside out. And it's even more insidious than most vices because we don't even consciously acknowledge that it's a pleasure. But part of living in a democracy and free society is that we all have to deal with views and people we don't necessarily like. Interesting. That's simply the price we pay. You could even say it's the whole point of the system. And it seems more and more people are forgetting that. We should pick our battles carefully while simultaneously attempting to empathize a bit with the so called enemy. We should approach the news and media with a healthy dose of skepticism and avoid painting those who disagree with us with a broad brush. We should prioritize values of being honest, fostering transparency, and welcoming doubt over the values of being right, feeling good, and getting revenge. These democratic values are harder to maintain amidst the constant noise of a networked world, but we must accept the responsibility and nurture them regardless. The future stability of our political system may depend on it. Sorry,
Yes.
I know that was long, but I didn't feel that there was one thing in there that I could leave out of that.
Here's what I wrote about that same thing. So it's the toxicity of being right as your value. So I think that's what
Hmm.
this kind of boils down to. My value is that I think I'm right. I'm going to shut my brain down to any other possibility. I'm going to shut my brain down to seeing something from your perspective. And it's sad when it happens on a national level. Like, that's sad. But it is catastrophic when it happens on a person to person level. If being right is your value, you also do some damage. If you value your line in the sand more than openness or understanding or sympathy, then you're going to hurt people that you care about deeply just to prove a point. If you're so committed to this is right, this is wrong, you often don't consider the complications that come with that. You're already doing this, right? I'm going to die on this hill. I'm going to hurt everybody because I'm making a point. And by doing that, you're deciding that that action based on your value is the right one and inadvertently hurting a bunch of people around you. Sure, you can have any opinion that you want and you can have any value that you want. And you can stand on what you think is a moral high ground, but often there are a lot of shades of gray built into your black and white system that you aren't appreciating when you're doing that. When you're valuing being right more than you're valuing your personal relationships with people and the impact that you're having on the people around you, you are essentially valuing being right above your relationships, your openness, and your sympathy. Looking at what actions do I take based on that and what do they tell me? How do we peel back that onion and look at what do those actions based on the values tell me about how I'm living?
It's hard shit to do because, like, of course, I read all this whole passage here in the book, and of course, I'm talking about shit that's on social media about politics, which is why I was not on Facebook for 4 years because I can't stand it. And I think part of what I can't stand is just the amount of people who want to be right, all or who think that they are right constantly and will listen to nothing else, and yet whatever. But I have a hell of a hard time seeing some posts and scrolling by them. This should have taken up zero space in my peaceful brain. But this is what I'm struggling with is I check the comments because someone had to bring that up. Someone had to bring that up. Like what you were posting makes zero fucking sense. Someone had to tell you.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think ever once in the history of Facebook that someone has
No.
posted something? You know what I'm going to ask?
Nope.
That someone has posted something, made a comment, and the original poster has read it and been like, you make a very
Wow.
salient, rational point. Never. No, it doesn't happen
Right.
because
Exactly.
people who are posting stuff on Facebook are so confident that they're right that they're never, and I think the hard part of it and pulling it back into chapter 6 is that's their value. Like the thing that they are
Yeah.
so passionate about is their value. Like this kicker for the Kansas City Dolphins,
Yeah.
Chiefs, Kansas City
Kansas City
Dolphins.
Dolphins. Where's Kansas City?
It's in the middle. It's the only one I know, right in the middle. Yeah, like this guy, like his values are reflected in his speech.
Yeah.
So, and his action is like, I should tell all the women what to do. And
Have at it, my friend.
A plus, buddy. A plus. You certainly did that. You grabbed a
Yeah.
platform and you shared your values with a bunch of people who are, fairly likely to be like-minded. Um,
Yeah. But
and
again, I mean, if you think about what I just read, like the media did exactly what, like
right,
that situation is exactly what Mark Manson is talking about here. And I mean, my thought on all of that was, is this a guy I'm going to hang out with anytime soon?
nah.
Probably not. But
I mean,
again, this is,
I wasn't
it's
going to
his jam.
anyway.
I don't give a
I mean,
shit.
he's a very conservative Catholic kicker for a professional football team. We weren't going to be friends anyway.
And
Um,
that's why he was invited to speak at the Catholic
right.
graduation. I mean,
You
these
go,
are
dude.
very intentional things. Like he did exactly what he was invited there to do.
Right.
And my
Values.
thought on that is that's great. Go ahead and do that.
And it's also a good reminder for the rest of us that if you are thinking about the actions you're taking based on your values and you're really wanting to get into what that says about you and whether or not these are values that are worth keeping, because I think that's kind of the point. You're always choosing this value and whether to keep this value or discard the value. So
And that's
get a
like part of
therapist,
it.
work through it, figure out, look at your actions, look what they tell you about your values. And sometimes it's hard to do that. Get a therapist and sit down and talk with them about it. They're neutral, they don't know you. I mean, they're going to bring their perspective into it, but for the most part, they're like, that's a shitty value. Maybe you
Yeah.
should look at that one. And they're going to say it in like a therapist kind of way, but they can
And
help
just
talk through this because it's hard.
right. And I mean, and just because we're talking about things or I might think your value is shitty.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm not
well.
you. Right,
We're all going to have different values, and that's part of this is being able to say,
right,
all right, well, you found your value,
right. Carry
rock with
on.
it.
Thank you for
Sounds
posting that on
good.
Facebook. I am so happy that you are so comfortable
Mm,
in your value and you're ready to reflect it.
yeah.
Maybe what happens through that is you get enough negative comments. What usually happens is you just double down on it. You're like, but
Yeah.
maybe someone points something out and you open your mind up a little bit and you're like, is it a good value? And you critically evaluate it. And if so, good for you. If not, I don't care. I don't
But
give a
the other
fuck.
part, like, so, I don't give a fuck. The next thing he talks about is there is no how, which I've struck a little bit of a chord because I think that from last week you can tell I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out values. And I want him to give me
Right,
exact instructions on how to find the values.
right,
So that one I was like, oh yeah, huh, got it. So there really is no how. And he writes here, you're already choosing in every moment of every day what to give a fuck about. So
right,
change is as simple as choosing to give a fuck about something else. It really is that simple. It's just not easy.
right.
So, yeah, it's simple, but it's not easy. And I think that's the other part of it. It's just not easy, which I thought was a good line. And then it talks about some other stuff and says, it's simple, but really, really hard. Like
Yeah,
these things are not easy. And then it talks about how as you go through it, you're going to feel like a failure. And one of the things that stuck out to me was you're going to feel kind of like a fraud because you're learning the values that are really important to you. And in a way, unbeknownst to you, you've been really living these other values and you're changing that now. So, and that's going to lead to some uncomfortable times with friendships
Hmm.
with, and
Yeah.
that's it. Still made me think of a butt kicker guy. His
Butt
last name's
kicker.
butt kick, but
Yeah, I know who you're talking
I
about.
don't know.
Or
You know,
Buttigieg. No, that's different.
no, that's very different.
Oh,
But
opposite.
so he plays for who, this Kansas City Panda Bears.
Right.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Kansas City
Um,
Leafs.
but that's the, he's thrown everything he's gone to the into that value that he has, and I'm sure
Yeah,
that there are people on his team.
right.
Yeah, your beliefs aren't the same as mine, and we're probably not going to hang out outside of that stadium.
But yeah,
But just it's hard to those things are hard to find, and then once you find them, figuring out how to live them and how to make those choices are very difficult and will most likely cost you a little bit of the life that you're living now.
right. And
But it will end in a better state.
you're trading up a problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's the thing. You're looking at what's the most important thing, and you're accepting responsibility that no one else is going to change this for you. It's hard, like he says in this chapter, like it's simple, but it's also really hard. Get a therapist, get somebody to help you work through it because you are going to kind of blow up some shit in your life. You're
Yeah.
going
Oh,
to,
by the way, sorry, I don't know why I thought of this. Oh, no, I know exactly why I thought of this, because Mark Manson, on something I read about him, it said how he quit drinking like 9 years ago or something. And like I'm reading all of this stuff about changing things.
you're
And
like, no.
I just want to make it a point that I'm not ready to take that step just yet.
See, and no, it's fine. I mean, it's fine.
I will not be quitting the drinking.
And no one is telling you that that has to be your value. Like,
Right. I know. I just, if for some reason that's what was in my head, I was like, but I don't want to quit the drinking.
you, you
I
value
like the
being,
beer.
you, you have a different value than he does in those situations. And also okay,
I
right? Like,
like the beer.
I mean, as long as it's not costing you anything that's more important than it, it's fine. It's like I'm not going to give up knitting because I like to sit in the evenings and knit. I'm not going to give
I
that up.
wonder, I wonder how you became the nerd in this relationship. It's so weird.
I
It's
know.
very
I don't
odd.
understand why people pick on me so much for being so lame.
I
Strange.
will not stop drinking Miller Lite while you are going to not put down your knitting
Oh,
needles.
but I mean the same thing. I'm not hurting anybody.
No.
You're not hurting
Right.
anybody.
No.
Unless you examine, like if I would sit down and I would examine, hey, by taking 3 hours a night to like watch YouTube videos about knitting, I'm missing out on, doing some things around the house that could move forward a value that's important. Then I would have to
Yeah.
look at the knitting and be like, hey, that might that might be a problem. Like
Yeah.
easy enough to identify my value of choosing peace, but also pretty hard to keep looking at it and being like, is that good? Is it bad? Am I just the peacekeeper? Like, what should
And
I?
just because you identify your value doesn't mean that like, hey, hey, I really like the
Hey,
peace. That's going to be my value.
that's my
Doesn't mean
thing.
that you're going to be able to perfectly live by that value
No,
and exude that. I mean, and I don't think that that really ever happens,
right.
but it's something that will constantly, like we've said 1,000 times, this is all a work in process. Or is it progress?
It's progress.
Okay.
It's progress. Those things that you just said, it's called an egg corn. EGGCORN, an egg corn. Like an acorn, only an egg corn. It's phrases that we've just repeated incorrectly so many times,
Oh,
like
yes.
intensive
It's like
purposes.
stories. Yes, intensive purposes.
Right, which is intense and purposes.
Intents and purposes. And I learned that approximately 10 years ago. But to me at that time, 10 years ago, I was 36. And I had just learned that it was intense and purpose.
You also learned how to spell charisma around the same time.
So it is progress. So it's work in
Yeah,
progress, not progress, not process.
right, because we're not Canadian. Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be a work in process because
Yeah,
it's hard. And
because it's
you have to go back and revisit it all the time. And the way that you do that is to consciously think about it. And I think a lot of it is about understanding and wanting to make a change and looking at your values and going, I think I would like to trade up to a better problem. I think I would like to do some self improvement. And the reason that I am stuck in the self improvement aisle buying the subtle art of not giving a fuck is because I want my life to be better. And I think
I
that
want to do better.
the nice message about this book is, yeah, you want to do better? Well, hello, it's a lot of hard work. Off you go. And
Hmm.
the only person that's going to take responsibility for that and should take responsibility for that is you. You are the person
Right.
that can do that hard work.
Right.
Did you have disadvantages? Yeah, probably. Everybody has some things that they have to work through. Some of them are badder than others. Some of them are more worser.
Better
Yeah.
and more worse or two.
So Liv and I were talking yesterday because we were having our daily therapy session, and uh, she was talking about her attachment style because she learned about attachment style in psychology, and she was like, "Thank you for giving me an appropriate attachment style." And I was like, "Well,
Oh.
I must have done something well as a parent." And she was like, "Yeah, there's plenty that you did wrong, but that wasn't one of them."
Oh.
And I
Okay.
was like,
Well,
"Yeah, that's the way life is.
valid.
Like, I did things wrong and gave you some shit to deal with, but now it's your job, you,
Yeah.
Olivia, to deal with that shit and make your life as good as you can." Same thing. Like Nita and Jumbo both gave us shit to deal with, and that's what we do. We deal with the shit and we make it as best we can. Some people got dealt some better cards and some people got dealt some worse cards, but I
Ooh.
ooh, it triggered a thing, a
Yeah.
thought.
It
All right,
triggered. It
carry on.
triggered it.
Carry on.
It triggered this. I'm going to read a whole paragraph again because it's
Uh,
just easier.
Everybody
This is a
loves it.
paragraph. This is a paragraph. It is not a whole section of the effing book.
I
Okay,
mean,
so this is about like circumstance. So
yes.
let's be honest here. If we were to add up all of the people who have some psychiatric disorder, struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, have been subjected to neglect or abuse, have dealt with tragedy or death of a loved one, and have survived serious health issues, accidents, or trauma. If you were to round up all of these people and put them in a room, well, you'd probably have to round up everyone because nobody makes it through life without collecting a few scars along the way.
Yep. Exactly my point.
And it's all about how you deal with those scars that you collect. And yeah, there's definitely, I mean, I'm not saying that
Oh, there's horrific
there's
stuff that happens.
some scars aren't a lot deeper and
Right.
never
I mean,
heal.
as as a lover of true crime and listening to some of
Yeah.
those horrific podcasts, but everybody doesn't become a serial. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, you don't have control over some of your life circumstances. That's just not the way that this whole system is set up. But you do have control about how you react. And I think that's why this chapter, out of all of the chapters in the book, is my favorite chapter. Because as I was
Yeah.
reading it, I was like, yeah, this is right. It gave me back sort of a sense of control. Am I going to fix every problem in my life right away, immediately, just having read this book? No, I'm not. But I'm also going to be able to look at the things that I have control over.
The thing I thought about, and the part that triggered this thought was how he was talking about he wrote a blog and a parent had chewed him another asshole because his child was killed in a car accident, and he just was saying that Mark had never dealt with real loss and whatnot. So anyway, my thought was Jackie and Ed and how they have come through the tragedy that they've dealt with. Because one thing that I was shocked about as I learned more about their story is how recent this happened. And they have refused to let it crush them. How they have chosen to deal with that is amazing. and
I agree.
choosing to start the foundation that they have and helping others and just helping get, you know, word out there about mental health and things we need to start talking about, and just the amount of work that they've done in such a short amount of time instead of just laying down and calling it quits.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
pretty
point.
amazing.
That's the point is that you choose how you react. Like
Yeah.
you choose your actions based on your values and you choose your values. And if you don't like the way that you're reacting to something, maybe you look at that reaction a little bit deeper. Liv and I were talking again in our in our daily therapy session, and she was talking about some teenage girl situation, right? She's like, and I was so angry. And I was like, all right, well, let's talk about that because she was like, I wanted to kill her. Think about that a little bit. If your value is to get revenge, then by all means, find a way to ruin that girl's life. Pour a lot of energy into that, or pour a little bit of energy into thinking about why that made you so mad. Like,
Yeah.
what, and pour a little energy into taking responsibility, because I think that's a lot of what this self reflection comes down to. Like, Jackie
A
and Ed
huge
didn't
part of it. Yeah.
choose that their path. Like Jackie and Ed didn't choose to have a child who had mental illness. Like people don't choose these things in their lives, but what they've done is sort of take responsibility for making sure that Tanner's legacy gets passed on in a way that's positive. Like
Yeah.
that is exactly what I'm talking about. Choose how you're going to react to these things. Take a heartbeat. Do you want to react like a teenage girl? And do you want your next action to be based on a value like revenge, like a teenage
Yeah.
girl? And I don't think anybody wants to live their adult life like a teenage girl because that would be exhausting.
Oh
Um,
God.
and anyone who's been around a teenage girl knows that.
Oh, it's terrible. There were a couple great stories in this chapter too, but the first
Right.
one was about William James.
Oh yeah, I dig William James. Like, I'm sorry, my man, you would lead a life of Job.
Holy
Holy
shitballs.
shit. Um,
This dude, first of all, if you're listening and you're not reading this book yet, you really just have to pick up the book. It is not a hard read. You just have to read it. But William James was eventually known for being the father of American psychology. And his story, the first 30 some years of his story was nothing but shit.
him trying
And when I
something and
say
failing,
shit, I mean terrible shit.
breaking his back in the jungle. I forget, like every getting dysentery or
Terrible.
cholera, or whatever.
Just
Oh,
terrible. Like, just awful, awful, awful. And he was literally on the verge of suicide, and he read some philosophy book or something, and he made a decision that he was going to take a year, and everything that happened in his life he was going to take responsibility for, whether it was his fault or not. He was going to take responsibility for how he moved forward from that and how he could fix that. And after that year, if he still felt so like there was no other way, he would go ahead and commit suicide at that point. And at the end of that year is when he had throughout that year he had many revelations, and like I've already said, he became the father of American psychology, teaching at Harvard. Did he win it? He won one of those Peace Prize things.
I don't think he did.
No, it was the other girl, the
His
Malalala.
my God, stop talking.
Malala Yousafzai. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Peace Prize?
Nobel?
That one, yeah.
It's also very noble. But I mean,
Anyway,
yes. And
she.
again, I will say that this stuff is hard. Picking a value, sticking with a value, evaluating your actions based on your values is hard. So
But that's why we're doing this. Because how many self help books have you read? I mean, for goodness sakes, you've read this book 18,000 times. And this is the first time you've actually narrowed down a value.
right. It's the first time I was like, oh, I have a value I could think about. Right.
And I'm not saying that to be shitty. I'm saying that
No.
because this shit is freaking hard. And if I wasn't doing this with you, if I would have read this and been like, wow, there's so many great points, and I would have highlighted shit, and then I would have put it on my shelf for everybody to look at when they come and visit, that I read books, and I never would have done anything with it.
Right.
So
I There are 15 sticky notes in this book about, like, that's how far I got. I was like, this is really cool. Really enjoying this,
mhm,
thinking about philosophy of stuff while I have this book open. But then I have knitting to do, so I'm going to have to close the book.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
anyway, get a therapist to help you sort through some of this stuff. It's
Oh,
helpful. What?
I just knocked something over. It's going to make a loud noise in the podcast.
It's okay. All right. So my favorite David Bowie movie, Labyrinth. So people who haven't seen it, the heroine in this is named Sarah. Yes, I see your finger.
How many David Bowie movies have there been?
I think just this one
Okay.
makes it my favorite David Bowie movie. Welcome. Welcome to the joke. So, Sarah, her mother isn't around. It's not clear in the story whether she died or got divorced, but her dad has married somebody else and she has a baby half brother named Toby. Sarah's kind of wrapped up in fantasy and cosplay, what would have been cosplay back in the day. She has a very active imagination and it feels like her home life is just 100%. Everything is just beset upon our poor little Sarah. At the beginning of the movie, she comes home and she's forced to babysit baby brother Toby, and she takes this as a complete insult, and it is a burden for her to be home on a Saturday night watching her baby brother. Everything is unfair. It's just gasp too much. So what Sarah does is she calls the Goblin King and asks him to take the baby away. So the baby disappears, and Sarah immediately regrets this, I think because she thinks she's going to get in trouble at home because she's disappeared her baby brother, and her parents are going to be pissed. So David Bowie shows up, says, "Hey, you have 13 hours. If you can get to the castle, I'll give the kid back to you." So adventure ensues. Sarah makes it to the castle and they have the final confrontation, David Bowie and Sarah. And David Bowie in all of these scenes is wearing very, very tight pants. Very tight pants. To the point that I think this is the first time Olivia kind of got the idea that boys are different than girls in a very specific way. And well, he's also wearing riding boots and a frilly shirt. It's amazing. I never had a crush on somebody so hard when I was 14 than David Bowie in those
Ew.
pants.
I have to look up a picture right now.
Right. Anyway, so at final confrontation, the Goblin King and Sarah, she's quoting to him like, through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, I have fought my way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City to reclaim the child you have stolen. For my kingdom is as great and my will is as strong as yours. And then she says the line, "You have no power over me." And all the time she's saying this, David Bowie is tempting her with, "I can make all of your little fantasies come true. Do you want to be a real fairy princess in a real castle? All you have to do is love me and leave the baby here, and all of this stuff that you've wanted forever and ever can happen." And like a theme through this whole movie is about her. Sarah's going through this maze and she's like, "It's not fair. It's not fair." And finally she realizes that, yeah, you know what? Life isn't fair. It's not fair that you have to give up your immature fantasies and move on and accept responsibility for your baby brother. So at the end of the movie, she's like, "Screw you, Goblin King. You don't have any power over me. Give me my baby brother back." And yeah, here's what I've learned through this: there are more important things in life than being a fairy princess out of this fairy story and having all of my toys with me. And that's these relationships that I built along my adventure, and this relationship that I should probably build with my parents and my brother. So she finally takes responsibility and her life gets better.
And that's
Did
what
you
it's all
see
about,
him in
taking
his pants?
responsibility.
Did
Can
you?
you open up the email and share the picture that I just sent?
I think I can do that.
Because I think he needs to really take responsibility. Someone needs to take responsibility for this catastrophe.
Right. This is it. Look at his
It's obscene.
look at his jacket. Look at his hair. Don't look at his wiener. Look at
How
his hair.
how can you look at anything but? I mean, honestly, look what I wow.
I had to
Okay.
stop sharing. Can't anymore. But I think
Okay.
that understanding that you have a choice to make, and until you decide to stop, essentially crying about how unfair life is and just accept that life is going to have some shitty parts. And
You
your
can still
reaction
cry
to
about it.
those, yeah, your reaction, you can have an emotional response to that shitty thing. Of course. You can have an emotional response to that. But eventually you have to move forward in your
Choose
life.
how to move forward.
Right. I don't have anything left to say. And frankly, I am super thirsty because I forgot to grab a water.
I'm super thirsty because I'm out of water, but I also have to take Owen Tucker to soccer.
All right, cool. I like today a lot better. I feel like it was more positive, fairly upbeat
I
compared to
love
last week.
today. I
I
love today.
also feel like I didn't want to cry for 80% of the episode, so good on
Yeah.
us.
Good.
Quick. All
So,
right, we're done. Love you.
love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.